Welcome to the Why in Poetry, a series of conversations with poets, their nuances, their thoughts, and of course, poetry. And I hope you enjoy all of these conversations as much as I did.
Welcome, Asela. Tell the people who you are. I know you, but they don't know you. So tell the people who you are, all the things that you do, you enjoy, all the stuff.
Where do I begin? So, hi, I'm Asela. My pronouns are she, her, hers, for those who may want to know. I'm a poet and semi-editor, if you want to call it, and wanting to become a teaching artist based in Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
What else about me? When I'm not writing poetry, I listen to a lot of music. For those who may remember, or kind of know that I listen to a lot of K-pop.
Yeah.
If you follow either my personal account on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, but I retweet a lot of
Yeah.
K-pop stuff. So if you'd rather prefer any poetry stuff, just follow my professional Asela Lee K. But if you want to see the other side where I just post a lot of like K-pop videos and occasionally other music stuff, I'm there too. But yeah, I'm a multifaceted person, I guess, in
Yeah.
a way.
That I love that. I don't remember how we met. I just know that all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is my friend here. And we talk all the time and we are poetry besties. I know it's probably around 2020 where everyone was just online and we were doing poetry events, but I regret nothing. It's been great ever since.
Honestly, I feel the same. Like I also thought about like how we met a while back, and I kept going back to the 2020. I think it's one of the poetry readings.
Probably.
It's one of them. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this person is so cool. And I'm like, you're so cool. And we just became like good friends ever since.
Yep, that's usually how it goes. You do a reading with someone, and the one thing about poets, I think, is like you do a reading and everyone is your friend now. Anybody who did the reading is also your friend. And so that's what I like about the poetry community. Let me see if I have any questions. I don't know. Even though, did you want to just start with the poems and see where we go into that?
Yeah. Is
Because
there
I
any like particular order?
No, no
Yeah.
particular order. Do your thing. This is your space to do whatever you wish to do with it.
Perfect. I am actually working on a debut poetry collection right now. So the poems I'll be reading will be from
Mhm.
that collection. And I'm working on them through my grad school, which I'm attending right now.
Yes.
Financial aid, which I'm worried. But
Wow.
that's not the stress we're having right now. Talk
Oh,
about poetry.
yes.
So this first poem's actually, I think you, Liz, you might have recognized this poem, but this is one of the poems that I really love and enjoy. And it's called Monochrome, to the tune of Inhale, Exhale by Now. Dreading to get up, let me stay and dream in Technicolor. Push back any flaw, hide until it's safe to love me again. Under these pink skies, would you notice me if I fade to gray? Shade into a blur. Black and white can last for oh so long. See, even if I smile, paint it in bright blue, shadows will slip through. I try to embrace my yellow face, but I run back to white, stuck in a blank page. When I speak in galaxy, in pastel, galaxy, it's a glimpse of me.
I love that so much. It's so pretty.
Thank you.
I think my question, I really love the, I don't know, like I love the flavors of this poem is the only thing that I can like, the only way that I can say it. Where did it come from? Where did the poem
Yeah,
begin? What was the whatever the oomph was that was like, and then it became, you know, I'm so curious.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for asking that. So little context actually. When I
Mhm.
was an undergrad, I used to do this thing where you know how on TikTok where they have these like different singers and artists, they do like, what if I was featured in this verse, what had
Yeah.
a verse in this song in
Mhm.
particular?
Mhm.
So I did that. And because I love the song and Hell XL by Now, I love Now, honestly. She has one of my favorite albums, Saturn.
Mhm.
But Inhale Excel specifically was I just love the instrumental and just the melody of that song. So I
Mhm.
kept thinking about it, and I was in the car and I was just like singing along to singing like as if I had my own verse. So
Uh-huh.
I just write down in that kind of like interpretation of how I heard the song. And
Mhm.
I just wrote down the way I wrote it. And I actually presented this to my grad school for a workshop, and they all like, this is interesting. Like, is this? It's they asked the same similar asked questions. That's like I thought it was just like, oh, it's just a regular schmegular poem. And at first, I actually deleted the part where I said to the tune of Inhale, Exhale by Now, because I thought, or maybe they just want to like look at it like a poetry perspective. I'm like, it's there. It served a purpose. I want
Yeah.
to at least show like where it came from. So I'm glad like you enjoyed it, and a lot of people in my class really enjoyed the piece as well. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
And I love Now too, like, and that's NAO for anyone who doesn't know the name of the artist, because um there is something really neat about the type of music that Now makes, and you can feel it in this poem. It's kind of this like it's a world within a world, which I'm just like, oh, like this is so it's just so yummy. So I really so
Thank
if
you.
you go into the next one.
Absolutely. So this one is a recent I've been writing this recently, and for a little context, so my mentor, Vicky now,
Mm-hmm.
she I was asking for like help because we do these annotations. I
Mm-hmm.
asked her like, hey, I'm writing an annotation on Gazelle. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a 2 page and just like kind of our perspective of what we thought about the form. And I
Mm-hmm.
asked her like, hey, can you give me like help me with the form? Like at least gave me the basics, and V was just very helpful in
Mm.
that process. And in fact, it actually kind of birthed into this little mini series I
Mhm.
started called If a Magical Girl Spoke in Gazelle.
Yeah.
And I was so enjoying it. And it kind of goes into like what I did with Monochrome, but do like after like the tune of the song. So I actually picked this song by Houdini by Dua Lipa, but it's like the band version, or in for the song's case, it's called the London session, because
Mm.
every time I listen to it, it just feels like it's been my headspace for the time, or it feels like it encapsulates who I am at that moment. And I started writing this piece. And when I was working, I had a hard time. I wrote other gazelles that has the same title, but it was hard. But I started thinking of the lyric. There's a specific lyrics in the song,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt like a puzzle. So
Mm.
I went with the word go. So this is If a Magical Girl Spoke in Gazelle after Houdini, London session version by Dua Lipa.
Mm-hmm.
I dusted off my leather journal, gifted by Okasan, as I go and recite my old poems like the spells I used to conjure golden words as I stood on my Sakura circle that traced the sun, moon, and stars to release my magic. Back then, I would go soaring across the night with wings I casted from the card scriptures that Okasan taught me to read. She said, go. Through these spells, the cards magic as you learn to control your magic. Her words echoed in my mind, but then I would go, gone, into a spiral, then found myself lost in a place where no one understood my chants, my language. This was how I almost let go of the stream. Forget my life as the spellcaster I was meant to be. Yet, the magic's voice from Okasan's chants reached out to me. Go through the tunnel and you will find yourself once again this power. My words finally found me. This was how I come and go.
That is, I literally read this one as well, and I was just like, this is like it's like a fantasy novel in a poem. And it's one of,
I love that.
I was like, this is another one of like the things that I've enjoyed a lot is just kind of the whimsicalness of it, but also I tend to see the poem as it's going, and so I was literally planted in this world and kind of watching this go along. So it's really beautiful. And the fact that it's a ghazal, I think it's a ghazal is the way that I don't know, that it's pronounced.
Oh, Hazel.
But it's such a at least for me it's a hard form for me, so I think this is excellently done in my opinion.
Thank you. It was a struggle for me too, but I think I gotten a little bit more hang of it with the Hazel. The more I realized the like how, especially with that title, I realized how I can use it.
Play with it, yeah. tell
Yeah.
tell me about what it's like to study for writing. Is it poetry that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Give me more info on that because I don't really know what the experience of it is like on an academic level.
Yeah, I would say I think for my program specifically, it's a low residency program.
Hmm.
So it's different for a lot of people's experience with grad school, but for mine specifically, I attend Pacific Northwest College of Arts.
Hmm.
So what we do is that we have the option to, our students have the option to either attend in person or online.
Hmm.
Luckily, I get to do it online or hybrid.
Uh-huh.
So we do like 2 weeks of just like going through workshops, getting together with like other students,
Hmm.
going through readings, as well as like attending like different workshops and being mentored and be assigned by a mentor, a different mentor every semester.
Hmm.
So what we do is basically like we have an annotation,
Hmm.
but what I appreciate about PNCA is that they're not too stressed out of like they don't want us to stress out, be formal, be academic. It can be like a diary entry.
Hmm.
So my last annotations, I basically kind of like do like a two pieces of like different forms. Like I did an annotation on Dr. Taylor Bias's incredible Sistina. I did that and I just like it was I looked at it and I just kind of also inserted my voice and my like how I read it and how I felt about the form, the way Dr. Bias did. And
Hmm.
then another one I did was Denise Frohman's
Hmm. Hmm.
sonnet, and it was I thought I didn't realize until I read her commentary that it was a sonnet. But what's so unique about Denise's, and I explained this in my annotation, is that she spaced out her sonnets and she called it her basketball sonnet series.
Hmm.
It was so unique, and it's almost looked like you know how those basketball coaches will like have like those drawings so like okay this is how you make the basket. Yeah, that's how I thought because like the way she explained it I was like this is so cool and it's so
Hmm.
also spacious too and it's also a unique perspective of writing a sonnet differently because I
Hmm.
didn't think of it until she explained it. It's like oh it's I thought it was pretty cool, unique. So
Wow.
that's what's cool about studying poetry in through an academic form, at least through my experience at PNCA, is that they're not, yes, they want you to learn that like the poetry and how that works, but also like still find to enjoy it and find the fun in through it instead of like restricting it. Because I heard so many like horror stories of grad school and people going to like an PhD. I heard so
Right.
many stories, but luckily I'm privileged to be have wonderful mentors
Hmm.
and having that experience. The only thing that weighs me down is the financial aid anyone has.
Yes.
It's the
Same.
only one.
Yes. I
Like
that.
like I was like having so much fun all 2 weeks. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then I'm like, oh wait, oh wait a minute.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. That's so
Yeah.
wonderful. Because I have heard more horror stories than joyful stories with the study, and I'm just like, why are people doing this if this is so horrible? But that's really good to know just because like and I said this in my first conversation of like I'm self-taught and I just wonder what it looks like to be on the school side of like poetry and what that looks like. So that's really neat. I like this
It really is neat.
concept of like low res kind of situation.
Yeah, it's very interesting because like when I first heard about it, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know like how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
think because of the pandemic and we're able to like do it online, I think it helped like give me an option. So
Yeah,
it's like it's so interesting because you meet for 2 weeks and after that you're just doing independent work.
got it.
But you get check in with your mentor like here and there, like we do letters.
Mhm.
So it was funny because like last semester I forgot we had deadlines. And my last semester it was Asela,
Uh-huh.
and and she was so nice about it. She's like, hey, oh, I sent her like two poems, like, hey, these are the poems I'm working on. And I'm like, hey, actually, where's the packet due? She's like, actually, you were supposed to send it in a month ago. And I'm like, what? No, wait a minute. And she was so gracious about it. I was like, I'm so sorry, Austin. She's like, it's okay. So I was like, oh God. But that helps. It does help. It kept me in check. So luckily I have deadlines now through V. So it's like, okay, great. But I
Useful.
if Asia is ever listening, I just want to say thank you so much for being so kind throughout my first semester and dealing with me.
My God,
It was fine.
that's good. That's good. So you have projects out. Tell us about your projects.
Yes, I have a micro chapbook
Mhm.
called Finally the Mixtape. And
Mhm.
honestly, I almost forgot about it until you mentioned it. I'm like, wait, I have that
It's
one.
out.
It is out, yeah. So I have a micro chapbook called Finally the Mixtape. It is a short collection of poems of just like writing poems to different songs. I was inspired by this incredible poet named Barbara Jane Race, and who has this collection of poems called Letter to a Young Brown Girl,
Mhm.
Letters to a Young Brown Girl, sorry. And she has this section where she has poems, but it was like titled after tracks, like different songs from
Mhm.
Erica Badu to Mary J. Blige to
Mhm.
some like Philippine pop stars I thought I never heard of until I
Oh,
started looking into it.
come on,
It's
Pinoy.
so honestly cool.
Pinoy
Yeah, I even
podcast. I love it.
yeah, I love it too. And I didn't realize it until I started researching it when I was like teaching a workshop based
Mm,
around that theme. And I'm like, whoa, that is so cool. That's like a pop music, basically. But she
yeah.
has like this different interpretation of like of the songs that are
Mhm.
titled after that. So
Mhm.
it's like the pop song is just like it's just about love, but in her poem, her own interpretation of it, it's like her self like identity.
Mm,
So I thought that was a very unique concept, and I did that with finally the mixtape
mm.
through that and just like having different songs. I even titled like ones that even though they're not technically leaked, I titled it leaked in the song title, even though they're not leaked. But in my brain, in my mind, I tend to leak, but I think it was just kind of I just love that like unique concept. So I just did that interpretation of it. It was I always say that if I can work with music and books for the rest of my life, I would just be the happiest person on the planet. So
Love
this is just like the personification of it.
it.
And it
Mhm.
also comes with a CD
It comes
because
with
my
the
publisher,
people.
yeah, because if you want to hear me read my poems, definitely go with it. You'll
Mhm.
enjoy it.
Absolutely. Put it out there, friend.
Yes.
Wait, what else do you have? Because I have more than one thing from you. Do you have
Which one
any?
was it?
Now I gotta go into my PDFs. There was one that I got from you.
Oh yeah, the Cherry Blossom Festival.
There you go. You
Was that
see?
the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know
See,
there's
this is what
flowers on it.
It was, so I have a digital digital chapbook called Cherry Blossom Festival. I wrote this through my undergrad, which funny enough, I had a very different experience from my grad school, but we'll probably get into that later.
Yeah.
But it's made through the lens of like my experience as a college student, just also navigating myself as an Asian American woman, and also tied only because I'm jealous of people going to cherry blossom festivals, and I'm like, why not just like have my own? So I did that, and it's been it's a good little chapbook. And if you like digital, it's only $3. It's not gonna scare you.
Only $3. Okay.
It's only $3. Yeah, like finally the mixtape is 20, but that's because it's the CD. It comes with it, so like
Hey,
it comes with it.
yesterday's price is not today's price. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. But they're both incredible projects, and I'm so happy to have them, and I would love for everyone to read it and check it out.
Absolutely. And you said kind of an editor. So tell us the kind of.
Yes, so right now I am a poetry editor at Variety Pack magazine. So it's an online literary magazine.
Mhm.
And we're doing well. We just finished, we're now opening our submissions by the
Mhm.
time this is recorded.
Mhm.
This is We're opening submissions for our 11th issue, and our
Ooh.
last issue was our 10th issue, and
Mhm.
it was our first themed issue, and it was like take on futurism and
Oh,
having different interpretation, and it's a very unique, and we've got some really incredible writers coming in, poets specific, especially we have some for the take a future of
mhm.
Palestine, and we also have ones from uh Afrofuturism. There's just like so many great
Exciting.
interpretations of it too.
I'm over here like, oh,
Yes.
it's to teach. Okay, that's what you're telling me. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. This is right up Liz's alley.
Right
Yeah.
here. Delicious.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible, and we everyone did such a great job in that last issue, and I'm not surprised about this next one, so I'm really excited about that one. And I recently am a poetry editor for Timberline Review, and we
Mhm.
got some pretty great poems too. We got some pretty great submissions, and it's my first time being a poetry editor for Timberline Review. I was their reader, I was their proofreader previously, so this is my first time being in that position. So
Mhm.
it is an interesting experience, but it is the one that I'm really gracious about.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, and when I say kind of, I'm kind of like taking a little bit of a step back because I was part of a press. And then I think after that, from those experiences, I'm just like, kind of want to take a step back a little bit, and also enjoying the space that I'm able the capacity I was able to have with
Yeah.
Variety Pack and now Timberland View. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a little bit of step back.
I think what I'm curious about is like, what is your experience as a reader, right? Like you said that you were a reader and then you were something else before, and then now you're an editor. What are the differences
Yeah,
in the experience?
it was a different experience. I would say for reader is just that it just depends on the magazines and like what journals I'm assigned to.
Mhm.
Like I've
Mhm.
been a lot of like reviews and journals now that
Mhm.
I remember, now that I think about it. But I think it's just like depending on like the workload, of course, and like we were basically the front lines when it comes to like submissions. And
Mhm.
we read through like different stuff. There have been a tons where I read so much of it, and it was like it reads like it's a rough draft. And
Mm.
then some of them, it was like some of them I kept reading like, wow, this kind of reminds me of like what I write. And
Mhm.
then I like starting to feel like, how come not resonating with that? But I'm starting to feel more like this is how I'm writing.
Mhm.
And it kind of clicked in my brain as like, okay, this is something I have to like look out for
Right.
in case if I do submit others. But it's an interesting experience go like reading, because it also challenges the way like my perspective of what I think is good poems.
Mhm.
It could one poem I had a conversation with one of my readers for
Mhm.
Timberline Review. They were very worried because it's the style of poems they could not get. And I told them I totally understand, because it may not get it for you, but it may somebody else. It might be like something innovating, something wonderful for somebody else. And it could, or somebody else might think, wow, this is not great. But in my mind, it's like, wow, this is actually not bad. It's great. So to me, I think it's also learning to be respectful, and it's also good to have a rubric. And it's also good to have like some guidelines to like look out for too, to keep in mind. So I think with readers, it's just like kind of it's almost like this weird of which one do I personally like, or which one would I personally read if it's come through like the shelves or the racks, or which one, or would it somebody, it's like a weird balance of like your personal taste versus the audience.
Yeah, and
whereas
of
yeah, it's a weird balance. Whereas when I was a poetry editor, I don't have to stress out that much, but it also kind of have to think about what I think could look good for the publication, or if it's, especially if it's a themed, it's like how much could that fit and how much that would speak with the audience too. So it's somewhat like that, but still kind of like you have to think about more about the issue itself. So it's like it's a lot of components.
Does it affect your writing or your creative process? Any of these like roles that you've had?
I would say somewhat, but I would say mostly it's just being more cautious about where I submit. So, and also being more gracious to the people, the editorial team, because I understand that they get tons and tons of submissions. Like I remember, I think it was like Variety Pack, we had 112 and we almost got 120 poetry submissions, and it was draining all of. I was lucky I had my readers, like my readers pulled through, and I'm like, I don't know how I all did it, but you all pulled through. So God. I was like, this is where the readers come in, where I'm just like, I'm so gracious for you. But I think I have to also be more, it helped me be more gracious and conscious about like the editorial team, and also be considering that they might have a team of readers that they feel like, oh, this is great, or like maybe this is not great, or it's good, but it's not there yet. You know, and I show appreciation for that. So I think when it comes to like writing wise, it used to, but I think now more so it's just for submitting. It leans more toward to that, instead of like the actual writing. Yeah.
That's so useful. I'm always curious. I'm just like, what's happening behind the scenes? Because it's,
I know, me too.
yeah, like it's different when we're just sending stuff in and we're like, it's been 6 months, and it's like there's 3 people there and there are 300 poems. Give them a chance. So yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it was wild, and I just like feel gracious about like all of my readers and everyone who doing such a great job. And even like Timberline Review, it's like it's all, we had like a over almost 170 submissions, and it was, people are passionate about poetry. Like people like to say like, oh, poetry still, like, no, we got you should be seeing what people have been sending.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it? So you did mention your undergrad. Tell us about undergrad.
Yeah, I think it's just, with attending grad school, I'm starting to slowly realizing that why I felt resentment, I guess is the right word. But when I started my undergrad, mind you, I transferred from community college all the way to undergrad, because community college, that's when I realized, oh, I want to be a writer, I want to be a poet. And I'm like, oh, I had this idea, and I thought I was being cocky. I'm just like, oh, I know everything. But the moment I step foot in like undergrad, it's like, oh, this changed so much. It challenged me. It really does challenge me, in a sense that's just like, I realize half of the time it's like, not, yeah, I guess it's resentment, because if someone were to ask me like if there's any poems I do not really like at all, I would say my undergrad. So not because of the content I was making, but because of like the overall experience. It was like very challenging that I honestly forgot almost all the things I've written. Like, what have I done? I can remember like bits and pieces here and there, but almost all of it, besides like the ones I released from Cherry Blossom Festival, I couldn't remember. You really had to like open a document for me and say like, this is what you wrote. And like, I did that. And I'm like, yeah, you did.
And so was it that you felt a disconnect during your undergrad?
It was. It felt like I think I was mentally preparing myself for something a similar experience the undergrad, because the horror stories I've been hearing about grad school, I'm kind of like slowly understanding it through the undergrad lens, because undergraduates, it's like it's a very interesting, because this is a different experience for everyone. I'm not going to speak for everyone,
Yeah,
but
no, absolutely.
everyone have different experience, but from my perspective, it was like it felt like I really had to adjust like what I thought I knew, or like the kind of style that I write, to what that looks like academically, or what they feel like the professor's view of it. And what's funny is that I have a group chat with my old class that I graduated with, and we do talk about this. I even looked back, I even typed in the search, I looked at like to reaffirm that this feeling. Yeah, it's just reaffirming like our text exchange, because like we all felt the same way, because it was a weird experience for all of us. And it was just like our different styles. Some of us used to love fantasy, writing fantasy, until we got into undergrad, and then it just demolished it, everything. And the style that I used to write for poetry, I didn't think would succeed. Like, it wouldn't do it. I was honestly shocked with the feedback I got from like V and as well as Asia and pretty much all my classmates in grad school, and my director. Like, the things that I was too scared to do it again, they're encouraging it. There's like, no, like this is actually really good. There's something you can do with it and play around with it. And there was no feeling of like a discouragement, or like there's this no feeling of like, I hate to use this word, favoritism.
Yeah, but it's real.
Comparing to what I feel. It's real. It's so real. And I constantly like, yeah. And I just want to put on record saying I appreciate everything I've done. Everyone from my undergrad. That's not to say the people who from my undergrad make the sour of my experience. They helped me pull through. Honestly, they pulled me through that experience. If it weren't for them, I learned so much from writing through my undergrad class. Like, I wouldn't be standing here. So I just want to take that moment to say that, even though the things I'm saying are just like maybe not deemed lightly, but I just want to throw that out there. Like, the people in my undergrad just helps make the experience better.
It makes sense. I think, and I think that's why I've been enjoying like the pieces that you've shared with me so far, because I'm like, it feels loose, right? Like it feels more of like a dance with the work versus like squeezing into something. So I'm kind of thinking of like like stuffing yourself into a corset, and it's like, yeah, the form, or it may look pretty, or it may do what it needs to do on the page, but you can tell when someone's having fun with their work versus like, this is my, whatever, and this is how it's supposed to be in this square and this thing. So I can tell the difference just because I've been reading you for a little bit, and I'm like, this is fun.
Thank you. I love the description, dancing with the words. I love that.
I mean, isn't it
I love
perfect?
that feeling.
Your music and your words kind of lifestyle.
That's true, yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else? What haven't we covered? Is there anything on your spirit before my biggest question?
On my spirit, I think it's just like I guess recently I'm really having fun writing poetry. I think especially the semester I'm in, it helped me learn to reason why I love writing poetry again. So it's like
Mm,
it's really nice. So it's just like it's a nice feeling, a reminder. It's
mm,
like no, it also reminding me like whenever I submit, it's like no matter what happens, at least it's like they got to see my work. I I know I improved, even
mm.
though they may not see.
Yeah,
Like this, like it's not like there. It's like I have improved actually. It's not that bad.
absolutely. So, biggest question. What does poetry mean to you?
Poetry means to me, I thought I knew what I meant,
Mm,
but now I'm sitting with you. I realize the first word I think of is rebirth when it
mm,
comes to poetry.
mhm,
It feels like kind of coming back to where I knew what poetry is and finding the fun, but
mhm,
also understanding that poetry is not just like a silly little escapism that we write in our teens being angsty just because or on Tumblr, but it's also like there's meaning behind it. It's also expressing our words. It's still expressing our where our thought process is coming from, but it's
mhm,
also a way to address the truth.
mhm,
And it's what V what I really appreciate we through our letters, where it's like, and I've been kind of living that line right now, is that live a regular, orderly life, but
mhm,
be violent and be strong through your words, through your
mhm,
work. And I love that. I don't know the direct line, it's slipping, but like when I read that, I was just like, I love that
mhm,
because be regular and orderly in life, but be violent and be like out there through your work. So it's
mhm,
like it's strong, even though the word violent is such a very strong word. It's
mhm,
also can be interpreted of like speaking the truth or confronting the truth, especially what's going on with Palestine right now, or like with the Asian hate crimes during the pandemic or the BLM. It's like everything is just straight up the truth. So it's just confronting it the
mhm,
way like I may not be like as active like through my activism, but I can do it through my work and just do speaking and also sharing on social media and telling people like
yeah,
don't stop talking about it, you know?
right. Yep. I also think about like there are many roles that are available in activism, right? Like the way towards liberation has many different streets that meet at the same place. And so what we see, especially with like the loss of Rafat, I hope I'm saying that correctly, um, is that poetry too supports the movement. Um, and so we don't need to sleep on the power of that. And I believe it was also Toni Morrison, her friend had told her like they asked her how is she feeling, whatever, whatever, and she was either in despair. It was Toni Morrison or somebody else. Don't crucify me when you listen to this, people. Um, but one of our elders said, I was feeling despair. And that person was like, there's no time for despair. This is when we get to work. This is when writers get to work. Um, and so I think about that a lot of like, as much as our teenage angst was necessary for us to get here, right? We don't realize that our truth telling, even if it's cringe now because we're in whatever age we're in, we were on our way to something. And so
Yeah,
I
it
love
was
the I love violence when we're talking about poetry and being able to
exactly.
equate that like not enough people realize that the first people that are attacked are the artists if we look at history.
It's true because I always find this hilarious because people want to make fun of artists. They want to make fun of like, oh, they just want to be cares. This is like abstract or whatever. But they're most of the time the artists they're observant. Like they think we just want to paint pretty words, or we want to like do just like want to look good. But most of the times we are observant. We may be like the most silent, like, what's the best word to describe it? I'm trying to think of like, we're kind of like the silent observer and just like the silent attackers to kind of speak the truth through our words, you know, and it's just like kind of seep into it, even if it's the most straightforward piece you could ever think of, it's there. And it just kind of go back to rebirth. It's just like you may be gone, but you always come back, you know. So I always think about poetry as that's like, me, that person be gone, but that slowly will return and come back, and the words will come out, and it's honestly a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
First time I ever thought about it, actually.
Yeah, words outlive us too.
Exactly.
So that's really, maybe I'll hold on to that, especially when we have our huge rejection piles. That sometimes can be, they can be difficult, but you know, when in doubt, just post to your blog if it needs to be out there, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where just like have my writing challenge where I'm just like posting social media. I'm just like, here you go.
Yeah.
Have fun with these ekphartic ecgraphat. The months when you write a poetry.
Yeah. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's it, but I use with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm like, why not? I'll just use this. Have fun. Roll with it.
It's great because I think sometimes we take ourselves almost too seriously with art. And so it's like we can do both and it'll still have its own space and impact. Because play is part of the process as much as we tend to forget about it. I know I do sometimes, especially when it's like editing and deadlines. So
Oh, same. I slowly learning how to figure out with the word play, like just having fun and just go at it. And I'm just having so much encouragement from my mentors, V and Asya, and even like with Jay, who's like the creative writing director at PNCA. Just like have fun. They're like, go with it. You're doing so well. I was like, are you sure? But then I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing all right.
awesome. Any favorite either prompts or like the annotations are what exactly? Just like breakdowns on like an analysis or something of a form?
Yeah, and it can be informal. I had a classmate bring in like literally bullet points and a picture, and they said, great. They were like, great. As long as you're engaged with the text and you're engaging with the form, whatever comes to mind. Like I love how like whenever like mentors or like even students who are like graduating, they hold like the workshop, they're like, express what you thought. You can write it, you can draw it, you can like do whatever with it. Cut it out and just tape it out.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Awesome.
It's fun. Yeah, annotation is just like analysis. It's almost like a kind of like a diary entry per se. It's not like a strict like a academic form, but until you have to present, that's
Right.
when they're like, okay, you kind of gotta
Give me
bring it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, bring it home.
That's cool. Oh, so yes. Any favorite like promptings that you've received so far within your program?
Oh my gosh. I would say there was one from V. I know I keep mentioning V a lot, but mostly because she's my mentor and like she's been helping me a lot this semester. But we did one where it was last semester, and we found this site where it was this question of like plagiarism, or this question of like taking, like artists like steal and take from other artists as well, but and always like this debate of whether or not it's like a sample, or if it's like a good way to take it as long as credited, or if it's not credited. We found this like site where we write it, like it's a collaborative all the class. We would like write a different like sentence or two and just have it all meshed into one letter.
An
we it was
exquisite
a
point.
it was a huge letter, and it was just like different interpretations of it, and they just read it. It was fun. Like V has so many fun like prompts, like different workshops. We
Mhm.
had one where it's like the three L's, the triple L's, and we're like, what's this supposed to be? It's like language. I forgot the other two, but it all wraps around writing. You're like, oh, so it's like we're doing the triple L's, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh. So we're all scared. We're like, is this the live, laugh, love thing? And she's like, oh, it's actually like language. I forgot the other two L's, but it does involve writing. And everyone's like, oh, that's what you need.
Brilliant.
It's so
Yeah,
fun.
that's awesome. I'm so glad that you're enjoying yourself because I'm like, oh no, they're going to grad school. What are we doing?
I I know. I told myself the same. I asked myself this as soon after I applied. I remember I was like, what have I done? I literally sat back and like, what have I done? I told myself to do the thing not to do.
Yeah, and it's also like everyone has a different intention around going to school, so it's very much, you know, how do you enjoy yourself along the way, right?
Yeah. It's like mainly I went to grad school because like I wanted to like do it be a teach poetry and in like in higher education and also like in community because like I try to do like a self-taught and try to build myself up,
Mm-hmm.
but I notice it's not helping me. It's not working in my favor, especially when I try to like apply for teaching jobs. They're like, well, you got to spend $125 if you want to be get a substitute teacher license. And I'm like,
Right.
$125?
To show
And
up
then
to class for a day? What?
I know. And then it's just like, and then if I want to teach like class, it's just like have fun with it. It's like, oh, you gotta have a master's degree. And I'm like, are you serious? It's the beer free is not enough for you. It's not
Right.
enough. It's like I'm like, okay, fine, I guess I'll have to go through a freaking grad school.
Do the
At
thing.
least mine is fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
at least mine is
absolutely.
fun.
What that's a pleasant surprise. Yeah, there's a lot of barriers to entry for a lot of things. So at least you're having a great time doing this. And so,
Yeah.
how much more time do you have left for graduation?
I believe until next year. So it's like 2.5 years. So until next year. Next year would be the last one for me. So I'll be like, oh, fun. And then student loans will start knocking on my door, like, hey, remember us?
You
Like,
know it.
no.
You know it. And so,
I'll be like,
do you know I guess what your dissertation would be, or do you find that out at the end? Or
I
like,
would say mine is, yeah, towards the end when I have like, when I'm like, I'm trying to remember how many packets. We've written so many packets. We've written so many packages. I'm just like, where am I? I start
Mhm.
questioning. But I think starting towards the end of this year and then the start of next year, that's when I started having an idea. But
Mhm.
from what I understand, it's like doing a presentation based on your annotation that you did,
Mhm.
and also holding a workshop based on like the annotations that you did, and they recommend you do like ones that you are really passionate about. So I'm
Mhm.
just like, oh, I have an idea, and I think they're going to enjoy it, whether it's structurally great or not. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. Awesome. That's so cool. I've just asked a lot of questions about school because I'm just like, I don't really plan to go, but I'm always curious of like what the process looks like and what the experience is. Because most times it's like a secret. I haven't really heard anything except like the stuff that sucks. And I'm just like, I would just like to know a little bit more outside of that,
Yeah,
like if you could.
same. Yeah, same. And honestly, after my master's, I'm like, no, I'm done. And then if they ask me to get a PhD, you want to get a PhD? I'm like, no, no, we're stopping right here, right now. This is where we end. It's nice knowing y'all, but no. But no, this is where I stop. I enjoyed my time.
Thank you, everyone. I had fun, and that is that. I get it, because that's a lot of years of school.
Yeah.
It is a lot of really cool.
It really is. Like when I honestly, when I heard thought about doing like back in high school, I did like I was researching like, oh, I could be like a teacher. Turns out you have to like go to like almost 14 years plus of schooling. And I'm like, I have no time for that. It's like, no, what am I doing?
To be abused
So
underpaid? What do you mean?
I know. It's like, what are you talking about? And be underpaid. Oh,
Crazy.
and yet here I am.
We are, sometimes you need a little more space and a little more time to really figure out things, which I don't think is bad.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. But I do have a poetry workshop in August. That's gonna for Adobe Press that will be hosting. That is similar to the past workshops.
Yes. All right.
Yeah,
Give us all the details if you got them.
I do. I do. So I'm excited. I believe it's in August, unless Diamond, who is the who's the owner of Abode Press. I hope I pronounced that right. Abode Press. Unless she hears this, like, Asela, actually, you're doing it next month. They're like, what? It's like, so for now, it's at the time of this recording.
Yes.
Yes. At the time of recording, it's going to be in August. And it's going to be, it's called Writing Our Identities, and it's through pop music. So it's basically kind of like the expansion of what I've been doing from the past workshops I taught, where it's all music themed, where we write poems to pop music, and I also gonna bring in great examples by Brenda Shinisi, the incredible Barbara Jane Reyes, and there's another person. This slipping my mind, but she's there. there and get to present some pop songs, and also it is an excuse to introduce to people some of the songs. I'm like, you should listen to this song just because.
Oh, that's gonna be so much fun. I have some things coming there too, but this is your moment. I'll share it with you afterwards.
I'm excited.
Very much looking forward to the things. Is there anything else? I know you have a podcast. Like, what are the things that you're trying to plug, friend?
Yes. Like, okay, so the poetry workshop I'm doing with Abode Press, of course. I have a podcast. Thank you for mentioning that. I have a podcast. I co-hosted with my good friend and fellow poet Kattrina M, and we're actually recording our episode today. We're doing our first episode, and we're gonna release it hopefully by the end of this month, and or March by the time this recording, by the time this come out. Yeah. And so we're excited about that. We're on our season 3, so we're excited, and it's basically a podcast where we talk about pop culture, literature, and just being fucking Asian, and also just having a good time. We had friends that it's all of our episodes on SoundCloud. Our last episode from season 2 is honestly one of my favorites. Is literally us playing Jeopardy with our 3 friends. You're gonna love it because there's so many sound bits. I had our good friend Lutha, when we posed the question about a Furby, he goes, "What the hell is a Furby?"
Oh, that's so good.
It's so funny. We also had a question about highest grossing concerts, and it's a 90s thing. And one point there was an answer. I won't give it away, but there was an answer. And then he goes, "What the fuck is a Rolling Stone?"
I love that though, because sometimes it feels like we all grew up in the same household, but then there are also moments where it's like, I have never heard about this thing.
Oh, I forget too, because like I remember I was writing a letter to like V, and I think it was like Asia too. I was like, oh my god, I was talking about Dragon Ball and passing of Akira Toriyama, rest in peace. And then I was like, in my head, I thought she knew what Dragon Ball is, and then she was like, "Can you tell me more about Dragon Ball?" And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot."
Yes, I've actually I talk to my cousin a lot about different animes and different shows. And I'm like, so everyone wasn't watching Dragon Ball Z after school? It was just a select few of us because I felt like I wasn't alone in this experience.
No, me too. I was like, what? Wait a minute. I'm like, so if I say Sailor Moon, you might blink and go, what the hell is that? Like, oh.
And that is heartbreaking to me. But I think I also saw on Twitter, like there was a lot of the discourse around Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, and somebody was like, why is it so popular in these like in the Latina culture, in like certain cultures versus like other people? And it's like this was free shows that we would see after school. Like this was on,
Yeah.
we didn't need cable for these. So when school was over, this is what was playing, this is what we would watch.
Yeah. And also, like, people are forgetting that America doesn't know what to do with anime, especially when it was first introduced. It was very Americanized, it was very censored. And when it comes to Latin America, they kept everything. They
Yeah.
kept the only change they have is the language. They have, of course, because you got to translate the thing, of course, so people can understand what you're talking about. But it's like they kept everything. So people knew about Haruka and Michiru being like a couple instead of cousins, or or like, oh yeah, they did or like Bulma and Vegeta, they had a thing. So it's like there's nothing to hide, really.
That's so awesome.
So it's like people wanted to sit there complaining, why do you say that? I was like, well, there's a history behind it.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, just like culture, and there's a world apart from American culture that I think a lot of people don't realize. But we are here in this place that is America at this moment. But it's pretty neat to just kind of see how many people did watch like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon and just kind of connect through on the socials.
It's also kind of like how people react to poetry, like how we talked about Puzzle, and people, because like they think poetry is like roses are red, violets are blue, and here comes a Puzzle. So it's like, my love, how can I not lead you to this
Right.
like, how dare you not see me through this lens?
Right, like these forms are nothing to play with. Okay, I mean, yes, to play with, but like they're hard. And to learn some of the history behind it, to learn a lot of these forms like the ghazal, the hazal, sorry y'all, are like predated to certain years before all of the dead men that we read in school were out. Like it's a very ancient form. And so sometimes it is hard because like my brain doesn't wrap around like that. It's like, okay, I gotta put some elbow grease into these poems. And so it is more than rhyming things that you may find in, a chocolate.
Yeah. Or like an ice cream sundae and think, this is fine. This
Right.
looks fine.
Right.
It really does.
I love that ice cream sundae. There are layers to this. We may start at the rhyming stage, but once we realize that there is more to the world of poetry, it's crazy out here.
It really is. It's there. People get surprised how chaotic poets and writers are. Like like people like to say like, oh, poets like to like sit there and think about nature. Like whereas I always bring up the story where like during my undergrad, two of my friends, we had this writing center. I would go in and we had this big ass whiteboard. I would come in and they start writing down a list. And I'm like, what is this list for? And we had our professor. His name is Craig. And no, I shouldn't say his name. You can cut that part out. One of our professors. So one of our professors, I was like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we're trying to figure out ways our professor gets out of school early. We're trying to figure out what doorway he just leaves. Like, I see like I see like some list, like there's like a secret doorway, there's like a portal. We make up so much. It's so hilarious. We were like laughing about this, and then but then we see our professor walk out the window outside, walking downstairs, like, oh my god, don't let him look, don't look at us, like, don't look at us.
It's just poets are people. We are unhinged, we are passionate, but overall we're human beings. And so, like, yes, some of us do the thinking, but we also have hot poet summer. Like, don't be confused, y'all.
Literally, we could sit and chat about anime and you're thinking, wow, they're doing so many poetic stuff. Like, we're just chatting about Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. It's like,
Yeah.
who would win in a fight?
Right.
Like,
here, like, all right,
like,
what is it? We're doing fantasy football, but for like anime characters.
exactly, yeah. Or like figure out ways when our professors leave. How does he escape school?
Absolutely. I think just
Like,
in general, we're able to just tap into things that, maybe it's not as entertaining to other folks, but like I'll think about alternate worlds all day and every day. That's where I am most of my time in my brain. So,
oh, me too. Yeah, absolutely. Like, people like to think like, oh, poets, they're like dead, or it's just like nobody reads anymore. It's like you be surprised how many people
very alive.
read it. They're alive and thriving. They're all here winning Pulitzer Prize. They won like awards, and they teach. So they're like, and also we'll definitely chat with you like who would win in a fight between Sailor Moon and Goku. Who will win?
Oh my God. I want to just see this. I want to just like, who has not created this video yet? They do all of these like video fights things and they put it on YouTube. I need it. Somebody
Yeah.
somewhere in the realm of creating these things, make it happen, please.
Oh, there is. There actually is. There's one called Death Battle. Yeah, they actually had a fight between like who would win a fight between Superman and Goku, because that's been like the long debated like debate ever. And those two, that same channel, the two videos was like a rematch. They ended with Superman. They ended with like Superman would win in the battle between Goku. And like,
this is biased. What is happening here? Let's be
I mean, we're
real.
talking about the same. Yeah. I mean, you got kryptonite.
Like, okay, like this dude needs to be in the sun and he has a weakness. Does Goku have a weakness? I don't even remember.
The one thing they say that weakness is that he's all about like fight, fight, fight. I want to fight you. I want to beat you. I want to like victory. That's like the main thing. That's like his motivation. That's like the only thing that can like go up against him. It's just like, okay. It's like
Stellium. Great. I don't see the problem here. Somebody throw a little pebble of kryptonite and Superman's done.
Yeah, he's like, here's the thing. Here, have fun. Roll with it. Roll in bed with it.
All right. I need the videos, okay?
Yes, there's also a video where they say like who would win in a fight, Mario or Sonic, and they actually do like a full ass like fight scene. They would like animate it too. It's really unique. And for some reason they said it's really nice, but they said like Mario would win.
Come on. I was like, come on.
Bro. With the cameras on.
Like, no offense to the little Italian man, but like, be for real.
Like, he's just a human boy with a mustache.
Oh my.
Like different, but I will say this: they do bring evidence. They do bring like some evidence to prove why. Yeah, they bring evidence why. They bring out some just like power levels and just like why they do this and this and that. I'm like, okay, I see your point. I guess. Yeah, but I will say they did like a fight between Majin Buu and Kirby.
Ooh.
And they say Kirby would win. And I'm like, I wholeheartedly agree. Because have we ever seen Kirby die?
Never.
Did we ever see him drop dead? No. Majin Buu, he went to heaven. He's dead. And that little Kirby, he never dies. He will probably stare at you in death. I will send you that YouTube channel.
Please.
It's I will, especially one with Kirby, because they will definitely beat you overhead saying he will never die, no matter how much you try to squish him, throw him, shred it, he will come back.
Resilience. Wait, look how I tie this to poetry. Watch this.
Yes.
Rebirth right here. Rebirth. Okay.
Rebirth.
Kirby is the poet. Okay. People have misconceptions. They think, Kirby is pink and also just adorable. Don't underestimate the power of the poet and Kirby. Okay.
You might, yeah, who knows? You might suck you in. You gain your power, and it's like, boom, I'm you now.
You have no idea. And one thing I will say about being a poet is treat us well, because as beautiful as it is that we will write about you, choose wisely how you treat us, because it will be there forever.
Exactly. Like, please celebrate us while we're still here. Because to me, I always say, like, the cruelest joke the artist would ever experience is that they die too soon and they would never ever get to see the flowers that they receive. And it's the cruelest joke.
It really is.
People want to say, like, the tortured artist. You want to do like the tortured artist, or like there's too many writers. No, there's not enough writers. You all are like, you want to like say there's not enough room, but there's so much room. And if you end their life there, and then all of a sudden they're like, their words are worth tens of millions of dollars, and now it's like, where we're I won't harp on anyone who was here from the start. I won't harp on anyone, but or like who did not realize until now. But the people who should have respected us, or at least appreciate us, give us our flowers now, should do it now instead of when we're gone. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I fully wholeheartedly agree. There's a lot of things that just the naming of the genre poetry, it creates this like wall. And it's like you're missing out on there's so many different kinds of poetry. There's so many different people. I can't even have all the books that I want, right? Like there's so much to experience in the world of poetry, and not just in books, but in spoken word, I would binge like certain, like button poetry and like stages and all of these different places. And just don't sleep on this, because I think the biggest thing is there are words sometimes that we give to things that you didn't even know you needed. And I don't even say that out of like arrogance. These are things that have been told to me, right? And so, don't wait until we're gone to tell us that we were wonderful. We can't hear you, y'all.
What are you gonna do? Send us a prayer?
Right?
Give us some incest. Like, maybe I might hear it through a radio transmission, with the incest, but still.
Like, send me some ancestral money in a note, I guess,
Here's a check to $2 million while you're in debt. Like, great.
So, I hope to connect with anyone. My space that I'm in, which is like the Afrofuturistic reimagining space. And when you realize a lot of our poems are in conversation with so many other things.
Yeah, and it's also like it speaks the truth. It says something, like you might point in like, oh, that's nice, but really it's like, no, it's being observant. Like people want to say like, oh, this has been taken from like The Handmaid's Tale. No, but Octavia Butler has been speaking on this for a while. Like we may point, or like the Hunger Games, people like saying, oh my God, this is just like the Hunger Games. But like, if you think about it, this was been pointing out for ages. People like to say like, this is just fantasy, when in reality, it's just like, it's just a reflection of our reality, and Afrofuturism is like no different. Even Tyrone, like they cloned Tyrone.
Mhm.
Like it's in the writing. It's there. Like it's they just don't want to, they just don't want to admit it. They're like, oh, that's nice. And they're
And
like,
it's also like, look beyond the words and listen to what we're trying to say, right? Because just because something is arranged beautifully doesn't mean there's a message there.
exactly. Honestly though.
So
I just love poets. They
like this
just speak the truth.
they see for sure. And so, you know, to poetry, y'all.
To poetry. I actually have a cup here. To poetry.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Any final words? That sounds a little morbid, but any other, what is it? Closing words. There we go. Closing remarks.
yes. Yes. If you all are still wanting to like get my stuff, like you can always buy Finally the Mixtape, Cherry Blossom. I'm not pressuring. If you want to send me money, because grad school's not easy. There's PayPal. But here's the have real closing statement. I just want to say, please keep the poets alive, keep poetry alive. And thank you, Liz, for giving me the space to talk about poetry, because it's so much fun talking about poetry. And I don't think a lot of people know, especially like the online space where it's like K-pop, like, oh yeah, hey, you want to read some poetry? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Try.
Try. It's not gonna kill you. It
Mhm.
might kill you with your feelings. It might make you cry, but it won't physically kill you.
Hey, maybe you'll tap into something.
Maybe. Never, and please stop saying poetry is dead. It's never dead. It has never been dead.
And it won't die.
Absolutely. And that is my closing statement.
This has been so much fun. I'm so glad to be doing this. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.